Hello and welcome to the Little World Warriors podcast with me, Tom, aka Taco. Very excited to be sharing this project with you. I am a father of two, currently living in Liverpool in the UK, and I felt it was time to start something like this, to start a conversation with fellow parents, but also non-parents, people who are working with children, have an interest in preparing our young people for the future. I am by no means a professional podcaster, as you can probably tell, very much winging it, but keen just to get this out there, get the conversations flowing. So if you're listening to this and you'd like to have a chat and like to record a podcast with me, please get in touch. Or if you know someone you think I should speak to, I'd love to make those connections. So on this episode 1, delighted to be speaking with Elle Chaska from Somerset. Elle is a plant medicine woman. Pachamama portal is her thing on Telegram, which I will share a link to in the description. Elle has been home educating her daughter Indigo for the last 5 years. Indigo is now 8, so she'll be telling us a bit about her homeschooling journey so far, and a few other things which you'll hopefully find interesting. So I think that's all I'll say for the intro. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Any comments, please let me know, and try to ignore any technical glitches if you can, or any screaming children in the background. Like I say, very much winging it at this stage, but I'm hoping my podcasting powers will develop as time goes on. So enjoy, and please spread the word. And like I say, if there's anyone you think I could do with talking to on the theme of how we best prepare our children for the future, please send them my way. Enjoy. Right, we are recording, I think. Welcome now to the Little World Warriors podcast, the first one. You are the number one guest, here to share with us a bit about your experiences home educating and being a mama, and all that entails.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm very honoured to be the first on your podcast. It's a beautiful idea, fully supporting that, and these arenas for talking through parenting and parenting issues are very important. So thank you so much for creating this space. I am both a working mother and a home educating mother. So in my professional arena, I am a plant medicine woman and a healer, and I'm also a home educator, housemaker, all of those hats on as well. To the beautiful Indigo, who's 8 years old, and she's really thriving, being home educated, and so we've been doing that for quite some time now. Indigo started in home education at the reception year, and has been home educated since, and it's been a beautiful, challenging sometimes, rewarding and deeply nourishing journey as well. So
Amazing. So the plan initially wasn't to home educate, so you put her in a mainstream school, was it?
Yes. So she went to mainstream school for one term in the reception year. And looking back on it, I have never been a mainstream person. I've always felt that, my values sit slightly outside of the kind of, the norm. I guess I just didn't have any awareness that there was an alternative option. But Indigo was subject to some really quite severe bullying in the first term of the first year, this reception year, which was very physical because they were only very little. And I felt that the school, there was there wasn't any safeguarding that appeared to be happening, and so it was a very traumatic experience for both myself and for Indigo. And I felt at the time the best thing to do, because she wasn't, because she's a May baby, she wasn't actually of compulsory school age. So I actually withdrew her, and then in that time, rallied with a few friends and got some support, and decided that actually the best thing for us to do was to just take a step back and just assess, were we ready to approach another school? And in that period of just stepping back and reflection, a few friends came forward and said, have you thought about home educating? And I said, no, I have not thought about home educating. I am not a teacher. I don't know how I would manage to do this. I think also there had been a part of me that, where I suppose my consciousness in parenting has now developed a lot more than it was back then. I think that there was also an aspect that I was kind of almost looking forward to her going to school, because I realised that that meant that I would possibly recover some of those parts that I felt very lost to myself. And perhaps my contributions to society, those kind of things would have felt more reignited. But conversely, actually, where I am now, the total opposite is true. But that's probably how I felt back then as well. Like, oh, I'm not going to get that time that I possibly need to be able to do all of the things that I need to do in her going to school. But I started to engage with the community, the home ed community, and I just found the most beautiful, bright children, loving families, parents who were totally managing to make working life and home educating a reality. Made some, I always felt like a bit of the outsider standing at the school gates. I didn't really have the same language and the same conversations that that felt nourishing that I do in the home education community, where I felt like I can really be seen and met and understood and heard. And so I started out with like, okay, we'll just do this for reception year, and then came another year and another year and another year, and I've never really, I think I'm jumping onto one of your other questions now, but I've never really kind of project too far into the future with the idea of how long will I home educate for, because people ask me quite a long time, and I say, well, we're constantly in a place of assessment with that. There's no strong fixed vision. We've just mostly got to the end of the year and made an assessment on where we're at, where she's at, what her needs are, and decided and committed at that point. It's a bit like that concept of hand fasting for weddings. Let's agree to do this for another year. You can pay as you go marriage. Well, we're doing it a bit like that with education. So it takes the pressure off as well. I think that's really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's not like you have to commit to however many years of home education till they're 16. I mean, most of the people that I know home educating, I think their kids are primary school age. Secondary school is a whole other ball game when we're talking about GCSEs and A levels. And yeah, I think for me that's something that I'm thinking about is, and with Little World Warriors, it was always this idea of how can we best prepare our young people for the future, kind of knowing that schools they do their best, but there's a lot of constraints and limitations within the sort of mainstream education system. So it was that how can we best prepare our young people for the future. The future, as always, being very uncertain. We don't know what the world's going to be like for our children growing up. And I suppose, how do you think we can best prepare our young people for the future?
Well, I think the thing is, to pick up on that point about home education and teenagers, there are a lot of them around, being plugged in to the home ed community now a lot more. I know some amazing mums doing great jobs taking their children through GCSEs. In fact, they're often ready to do the GCSEs well ahead of their peers. And so, if you want to kind of consider preparation for adulthood in terms of academic prowess, then it's totally possible to do that through the home education, portal. But, there are different styles of home education, and that's probably something really important to understand at the outset. There's kind of the American style of home education where literally, and what a lot of people in lockdown have been doing is literally where a syllabus is delivered and is followed, at home, maybe with, computer and Zoom classes and stuff like that. That's basically all run. And then there's, other styles, which is kind of almost like, we could call that education at home. Yeah. And then there's obviously the kind of the various different types of home education, including unschooling, which is a much freer way of schooling children, where you really very much give them the kind of basic understandings that they need, and then support them through them making their own investigations and experiments into whatever subjects they want to explore, and it's very, very child-led. And then you have other forms of home education, which are kind of what I would describe as more semi-structured, and we probably fall into something like that, where we are operating through some structure and some very sort of unschooled methods. And I quite like the combination of the two, because for me that kind of means that should Indigo choose at some point that she wants to go for those academic qualifications, that she is prepared. So if you're talking about preparation for adulthood in terms of are they going to be qualified to get a job and things like that, I think home education can very much meet those needs. But in terms of emotional education and life enrichment education, I feel that it's a much richer path for the children. And when you've got positive parenting models around them, which I find a lot of in the home education community, the children are really working with that, and they watch. I mean, you must know this about kids. You've got one yourself as well, but they watch everything we do, and they learn by watching the adults around them. Often in the home education community as well, we do more kind of rites of passage with the children. Pink tent and lads groups and stuff like that. So there are more kind of stepping into adulthood practices, which are definitely very much needed and very much lacking in the school system, which are helping to prepare the youngsters for that transition. Because so many adults actually arrive at adulthood with their inner child very much intact and running the show, that dysfunctional inner child, rather than something that's an integrated adult. And so we do a lot of work on the emotional intelligence, which is, I know that things have changed in schools since I went to school around emotional intelligence, and there are efforts to improve this. But I feel that that is definitely something that in the home education community we focus on quite a lot more.
Thank you. Yeah, and arguably that is the most important thing that we can equip our children with is that resilience and emotional intelligence, which certainly wasn't part of my education that I remember. And a lot of statistics now about the stress and anxiety that teenagers especially are under at the moment, and it does sort of make you question. And I think a lot of parents, over the last 12 months with with COVID, that have had to experience home education, and some of them might have quite enjoyed it and seen that it was a positive thing for their family and their children. Other parents maybe less so, but I suppose, what you were saying about, the education at home and the home education, because I think although, children were having to be educated at home, it was very much the schools kind of telling the parents what to do. An interesting time for families, because I think a lot more parents will be considering the home ed journey, and initiation as well. I think is so important, and that's something that I would be really interested to explore more, especially with younger people. So you're what, 4 years into your...
I think it's 5 actually, but but this last year has been very, very different, because even though you're sort of saying, the parents have been educating at home, like because of the lockdowns, it's been really challenging for home educators, because I think there might be a bit of a misconception sometimes that we are just operating as isolated units, and that's far from the truth. Many of us come together to educate together, and make sure that our children have got that important socialization with each other, and all of that has obviously gone out of the window. And we used to have tutors as well, and clubs, and things that we used to be able to attend together, and for the majority of those things, they all closed. So it's been, I've got an only child, so it has been a very isolating time this last year, and it's been very challenging, much more challenging than usual this last past one. And I hope that any parents who've educated at home don't think that that's actually what home education's like, because it's very far removed from that.
No, that is a really good point. And I suppose a lot of places like museums not being open, and nowhere to take kids to. That is a really, really good point. So the emphasis then on community and kind of a cluster of home educating families. I suppose that's a key component in
it's community building. There's that, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it, that it takes a whole village to raise a child, but definitely home education is a community project. And you soon find your little tribe, and you start to grow together and nourish each other. And one of you might be strong in the arts and crafts field, and so you'll offer to put something on like that for your group. Someone else might be strong with languages or something, and so you might have a language get together. I've personally found that my group weren't adverse to, using professional teachers either, and then, pooling that. And, and I think even some communities have even kind of built kind of pseudo schools, for with their communities as well, because one of the things that's obviously useful is if there are places still where children can go and the adults can step back a little bit, because it can be quite intense sometimes, just doing constantly the one-on-one work, especially if you're trying to work and all of the other things that you're trying to balance. And so, for me, that would be really perfect. I heard about one community where, for example, they were sharing a day, so that parent actually got a full day to themselves, and the other parent took the child, and they did the education for that day, and then they did one in kind, so that there was actually that let up and that break in the schedule. And if you could kind of collectively vision something even greater and better, I think that for me that would work really well, because it can be challenging, let's say, to really strike that right balance between the home educating and working, I'm fairly lucky in that sense, in that Indigo goes off to see her dad for a visit, because I'm not with him anymore. And so for me, that gives me that window, that break from the kind of intensity of it, and also for me to do some of my own things, my own work, my own self-journeying and self-care that is very much needed. So but that's just my personal situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, yeah, it's that acknowledgement that I don't have all the skills or all the knowledge to impart on my children, and I would very much want other adults involved in that. So I think it's finding that that community. And where we are currently in Liverpool, there is quite a thriving home education community, but there's kind of a potential move on the card. So I think one of the things that we would have to look into is whether there is a pre-existing home ed community. Yeah, I mean, I think, is there a bit of fear? I don't know if it's fear. There's kind of a bit of excitement. So we put our oldest Kai down for a school, which he didn't get into because we're kind of out of the catchment area. And there was a sense of relief when we kind of got that letter in the post, that he didn't get in, because I think there was a sort of sense of freedom, and it sort of made that decision for us. It's like, okay, well, now we can seriously consider the home education, and he's only 4, and it just seems so young to be putting them in. He's in nursery 3 days a week at the moment, which he does really enjoy, and there's part of me that thinks, he could really enjoy that school environment and all that has to offer, and it is very stimulating for young people. So yeah.
I mean, there is also flexi schooling. I don't know if you've heard of that, which is where the child does 3 days a week in school and then 2 days a week is home educated. And I think that's also another quite interesting avenue to explore, because you've almost got the best of both worlds there. If you can find a school that does it, because not every school will do it. For example, the nearest one to us is about 45 minutes away, so that was just putting an hour and a half commute onto a school run every day was not looking very attractive. So I get that, but I mean, in most major cities there are really good home education communities, and Facebook is probably one of the best places to go and find your home ed community and engage. Most counties have got a Facebook group, so it's a good place to start. And then there's normally smaller ones for towns and smaller areas as well.
Amazing, thank you. So I'm conscious of the time. How are we doing, sort of your end time wise? Okay, I have a quick scan of my questions to see if there's anything I feel is really okay. So quickly, maybe just the main challenges of homeschooling and the main positives, in your opinion.
The main challenges are, I suppose my daughter's quite willful, and it's having sometimes those change of hats that can go on, between this is me being mum now, and now this is me trying, I'm not trying to be your teacher, because I think that's something else. I'm trying to be the person who guides you in your education journey, but obviously one of the hardest times is where there is resistance. For example, Indigo's had a lot of resistance around maths, because she finds it challenging, and in those moments where she's just wanting to have a meltdown because it's more maths, and I'm thinking, I'm sure if it was a teacher you wouldn't be behaving like this, and so sometimes with that kind of crossover of hats, it can be challenging. But I've found in those moments, to just like, okay, so I kind of can be quite tricky, and like I might just like think of a way of presenting it to her that doesn't feel like maths, so that it feels like something fun. and kind of weave around it. And I know better now, because I think when I first started, I felt like, I almost had to replicate school. And now I'm a lot more relaxed. So I think that was probably one of the main challenges that I had to kind of overcome. And I suppose the best thing is just like the joy that you see your child in. I see sometimes other children her age who are, quite almost like you can just feel in their energy that they're het up and they're tense, and or they're shy with other adults. I mean, sometimes that's just the personality, but I've just been really I feel like that this is producing such a beautiful, confident, well-adjusted child. And what else as a parent can you want from that? So I think that's it, really. That's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, I've not met Indigo, but I've seen some of her videos about foraging and
just like me, she's very into plants.
Young lady.
And she really wants to be a presenter, basically, when she grows up, and I'm sure she will. She's so sweet and funny with it, and she's definitely got a passion for the natural world as well, which is definitely another bonus of home education, because we're just out so much of the time. And not only that, but I'm getting to indulge my passion, which is plants, as well, alongside her. So we're kind of learning together sometimes. I mean, I know you said, I feel like I don't have the skills to to teach. You don't really need them, because often you learn together. And we've got so many resources for teaching and so many resources for education. Just because you can't remember the periodic table doesn't mean that you can't look it up.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's so much that we all forget from our own schooling, and it does make you question, like what.
Well, I'm learning it all again. So should you want to know what pi is?
Yeah.
But it is quite funny going back to it for a second time.
Yeah. Must bring it all back.
Infuse a love of learning. That is all they need. A love of learning, and they're sorted.
Yeah, I like that. That feels like a good note to end on. So
that's our strapline.
Really
thank you so much. Thank you. It's been lovely
to talk. And share your experiences. Thank you to anyone who's been listening.
Thank you.
And we'll put some information below. But as I say, this is the first one we've done, so it's been a bit of an experiment. But hopefully there'll be more conversations like this from Little World Warriors. So thank you, Elle. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Keep up the good work, and
bye.
We'll speak again soon.
To solar and wind turbines, say no to gas and oil.
Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Little World Warriors podcast. I've been Tom, aka Taco, speaking to the wonderful Elle Chaska about homeschooling. Please click subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube, and join us on our Telegram channel, Little World Warriors. And we will have some more podcasts and other content for you soon, all about how we can work together to best prepare our young people for the future. See you next time.
It's time to turn the tide. We say no, 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 it's time to turn the tide. We say no, 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 it's time to turn the tide. We say no, 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 it's time to turn the tide.